Hello, fam. My name is C.S. Williams, the radio apprentice, and you're listening to Netting Radio Podcast. This evening, I thought about COVID 19 and then I remembered those black people out there who are protesting for their freedom. And then I think about the same freedom that they tell us that we all have, the same freedom that we fight for every day, the same freedom that is being fought for right now. It's either our constitution is messing things up or someone's interest is clouding the whole atmosphere. Going back to the history of racism, the things about racism is not the kind of story you tell a child that wants to go to bed. It's not a bedtime story. If you tell a child that kind of story, that child will have nightmare for the next 50 years, depending on when his or her mouth is being oiled. Because I think that every time a black man's lips is oiled, he continues to lick his lips, and so he's unable to say anything anymore. And that's what's happening. We talk about how we are being abused and how we are being suppressed, but we forget that every black man wants to make wealth to oppress a fellow black man. We don't love each other. We don't. If we do love each other, at least to an extent, things would change because they say the change comes from home. We're not willing to change. Come to Africa, see what is happening. See what is happening with leadership. Leadership is a mess in Africa. And then, what are we looking up to? When a man puts his house in order, he sees you as a tenant. He sees you as a guest. And besides, you can be a guest and own his home. You cannot. You're a guest, you're always going to be a guest. Because your homeland, where you come from, where your race is being produced, is in a mess. Their leadership is in a mess. Their leadership is in the pocket of the same people you seek freedom from. And you tell me that things are going to be all right. Things are not going to be all right. Okay, this year you're pulling down statues. These are statues that has been there for quite long. And we saw them. We knew they were there. So why wasn't anyone talking about bringing them down? Because we're seeking opportunity to do it. That is because we don't love each other. We're not together. I look at the dynamics of politics. Most of the black people use this Black Lives Matter theme to gain re-elections or get elected. And then when they get elected or when they get re-elected, they go there and they forget the theme for which they got there. These things would have been policies. It would have been policies. These statues, abuse would have been dealt with through policies, through intense policies. But when a black man gets to Congress, when a black man gets to power, he forgets the reason why he got there. He would no longer fight because his mouth has been oiled. So he continues to lick his lips until maybe 4 years. Then he gets out of office and then goes back to the drawing board and telling you like Black Lives Matter. Maybe when we sit back and fix our houses, then we can go out and approach people that are doing us wrong. And then we can do it together. So that when one person is harmed, everyone would have no other choice but to pick up their anger where they left off. It's as easy as that. But you know what? It's never going to happen that way. I so pray that what is happening this 2020 would end racism, but frankly, it's not going to end racism. Why? Because we have not sorted ourselves yet. We have not sorted supremacy yet. We have not even sorted our own leadership. So that is why I see the whole thing happening as an importance for politics. Now, look at the people. First of all, look at the degree of people who are supporting the Black Lives Matter. See the oppositions. These are the same people who don't even care. Check their history. Check what they have done to the blacks. But now they are the ones who are championing the whole thing. And we don't see anything wrong with all of that. Like, is it that we cannot stand alone and make a decision? We cannot stand alone and do a foundational protest that would not just finish now, that would last for as long as it's going to last. So, guys, I think we should fix our home yet. I think we should fix Africa. I think we should make something of ourselves. I think we should explore the intelligence that they see in us and they use most of it to improve theirs. I think we should be able to explore all of that. If we can fix every of these things, racism would vanish on its own. Yes, racism would vanish on its own. Gradually, most countries are already defeating racism from continental improvements. So I think we can fix racism if we can fix this continent. Racism will be fixed when we start electing leaders who are independent of their own ideas. Racism will be fixed if we have a continent that can come together and make a decision and move forward with it. At that point in time, you and I have a home. And so when we go out there, we will not be treated badly because they know we have a home. A man who is treated badly outside is a man that knows his house is not in order. They know you're not going back to anywhere. They can see that your place is wrecked. But when they know that you have a home you're going to, when they know you have a foundation that is strong, they'll treat you well. That's the first line of action. Because to me, we're still being colonized. So if you're being colonized, what are you searching for? What are you looking out for? You're like a baby crying for milk. They'll give you the milk, you take it, you take the milk at that point in time. When the milk is finished, you're done. You go back to the drawing board and you continue crying. That is exactly what is happening. That is what we're dealing with. We don't need to be crying like babies because that is what we're doing. We're crying like babies. I think we should fix our home and make demands. We should fix our roots and make demands. Time should come when African leaders can come up and be like, don't do this else. You can't have an African leader say that. Don't do this else. How? With what? With what? If you make too much noise, they throw sanction on you. What are you going to do? Nothing. And besides, they're being oiled by the same people. They're still licking their lips, so which one would they use to talk? A man who is eating, don't shout. They're still being fed. So which mouth would they use to shout? So most importantly, I would like racism to be a thing of the past. I would like the story not to even show up in any place where kids would want to hear them. But then until we fix our leadership, until we fix our ideas, until we learn to love each other to an extent, in a more natural way, and let things happen naturally when things don't go right. And we understand that. When we learn to do all of that, racism would fix itself. When people who get into office to fight for a particular cause go there and fight for the cause they have been elected to fight for, things would change. I think most of these people should start holding their leaders responsible when they get to office in the Congress, basically. You should start holding them responsible because you can't go there after making noise and then you start enjoying yourself and you forget the reason why you got there. If all these things are being figured out, when leadership is being figured out, when we fix our homes, when we gain back our voices, when we stop being fed, when we start hustling for our own food, we can stand our ground and make demands. Now you're not crying, you're making demands. You're asking for something, you're not crying to get it. That's my take. And racism to an extent will be fixed. Okay? My name is C.S. Williams, the Radio Apprentice, and you're listening to Netting Radio Podcast. I'm going to go on break, and when I come back, we're going to switch to something else because this is not quite an interesting story. Okay? I would like to get your views on how racism can be fixed, how important it is for you to air your opinion on how racism can be fixed. I would like to get your input. Okay, so you hang around and we're going to have a wonderful conversation. But yeah, if I have dropped this piece as a podcast, you can comment it down there or you can send us a voice note. And yes, we're going to recognize it. Absolutely. Okay, thank you very much, guys, and stay tuned.